I'm John Rodgers from Cuyahoga Falls, and in spite of Buckeye fans in the state, I know I'm in Ohio, but we're going to say yes to Michigan. That's a slogan they used to use in advertising for Ohio people to come up and see them. Now this is the Wolverine state. It's a 26th state. In 1837 it got into the Union. This was a trip from Stan Hewitt, and we went roughly this way over to Grand Rapids and on up and crossed the bridge here and went up to Sault Ste. Marie, and then we came over in this place and went up here, and we'll stay there a little bit and come down, and we went over to Mackinac Island and then came down into the Detroit area and made our way on down. But for those who are not really familiar with it, this is the Mackinac Bridge, the Mackinac Straits here, and this is Lake Michigan and Lake Huron over here, and this is Lake Superior up here. And this is called the Upper Peninsula, or the UP, it usually is called. Michigan is touched by 4 of the Great Lakes, and its population is almost 10 million, with Lansing being the capital. State flower is the apple blossom, state tree is the white pine. Now we're first in Grand Rapids, and Frederick Meyer Gardens with sculpture, and that's what you're looking at here, some of the sculpture in the gardens, and they have houses also. We will be walking around, and then you will see the huge and beautiful Da Vinci horse. If you've never heard of it, just hold on a minute and we'll see it. This is on top of one of the buildings there. And then these baskets are really quite an interesting design. We'll see them from the back in a little bit too. I'm in a building looking out at them right now. And then on top of the building, they got sculpture all over the place. This is a real wonderful place. Here's a bear sitting there. I never saw a bear sit quite like that before, but I suppose. An eagle. These are all out in the woods in different places. A wolf. No tail on that wolf. That's strange. And if you've never seen it before, and it's very hard to find, this is the leaf of the American chestnut. That was the chestnut that was all along the ridge of the Appalachians, which was killed by blight. Queen Anne's lace. I'm sure you're familiar with that one. And then look and find 3 frogs jumping back into the woods here. The different buildings, we will, after we see the great horse, we will be going into some of those buildings here at Meyer's place. And here's a little bear sitting behind a big bear. And that's all done out of driftwood stuff, and they use all kinds of methods around here. And here's some more of that sculpture. This is that modern stuff that I don't understand. That's quite a building over there, kind of pretty, really. And then here is the horse. Now this is a 1493 design, and all he had done was a clay model. This was done by Leonardo da Vinci, and the artist whom was selected to actually bring this horse into being was Nina Akamu, A-K-A-M-U, Akamu. She was the artist that brought it in. It's 24 feet high, and it was designed, can you believe, 500 years ago. It's in bronze. Really quite a piece of sculpture. One of the biggest you'll ever see. And here's the foot. Those little carts are what they used to take us around when they gave us a riding tour, but we had already walked around quite a bit of it before that. And here's a blacksmith working. And a horse pulling a log. And geese. Geese? Yeah, either geese or swans. Some deer coming down out of the woods. Beautiful old owl. These are all statues. And this is a little model of the horse. They got wetlands there. This is algae. This is duckweed growing on the surface. And here's another view of those, I don't know whether you call them baskets or what, but now we're inside now. And if you were over in Hawaii, you could probably take pictures of this on the outside because it grows wild, and this is called lobster claw. Also a lot of sculpture inside as well. This is ginger. Beautiful orchids in there. I get carried away on orchids. I never know when to stop taking pictures, but they're so beautiful, that one especially. And here, this is not an orchid now, this is another vine that was growing up by one of the doors. And then in there also turtle, a bronze turtle. I never did find out what the name of this particular plant is. But you can see why they need that high building to take care of a lot of these big ones. We heard this bird singing, but that is the best I could do on a picture of him. He was very, very elusive. Had a good voice, very elusive to take a picture of. Beautiful white orchid. Now, many of you will know this plant. This is bougainvillea. Many of you have seen it, especially down in Florida. Our sculpture has done turtles some more. This is not the greatest picture, but this is the best one I have of some of these air plants that they have to use something to cling to, but they get a lot of their sustenance from the air. Big giant panda. Don't know what that one is either, but you can see the basket off on the right that it's growing in. Just fantastic, the variety within one little place. And a little bit more sculpture. These look like they go back into Jurassic days. And here's a Maasai mother. Now I have been over to Kenya, so I have seen, and it was unique. I got to photograph Maasai people, which was really quite good. Cactus, lots of cactus in here. Coyote howling. This is all in one place, the Frederick Meyer Gardens at Grand Rapids. I would strongly recommend this place. It's really fascinating. We're on our way out now, and here's a little place that had some children's statues. If you're not familiar with it, this is a prairie plant. This is purple coneflower. And this is Mr. Myers himself. They're sprinkling him, but this is a statue, and he's sitting on a bench out in the green part of the area. And we have now left Mr. Myers' Gardens, and we're at Gerald Ford's Presidential Museum. Jerry Ford was the 38th president, and he signed the bill creating the Cuyahoga Valley National Recreation Area over in Summit and Cuyahoga County, when it's now a national park. But we're going in to Mr. Ford's museum here. Now that I took right on the door. I'll show you the seal again inside, but that one was very easily taken. Here's the sort of the traditional picture of Jerry Ford, and he's the one that took over from Nixon. Steps going up, all kinds of neat things in here. And as we go around, now this was up high and inside the building. This is what was some of the museum there has some of the things that are going on during the Jerry Ford days. That paint and varnish sign that you see over here, that's a place in Grand Rapids. All kinds of things associated with Mr. Ford and with his wife also. And you see Ike and Mamie Eisenhower in this one. Now going on at the same time, but you could not take pictures, was a Lewis and Clark exhibit, which was pretty good, but for some reason or other, it was a traveling exhibit, and it had restrictions on photography. And you might remember that upper headline in the newspapers, Nixon resigns. Now they do recreations of the Oval Office in the different museums and libraries, and this is the recreation of it when Jerry Ford was president. It's pretty well lighted. I do not use flash except on very rare occasions. So all this is natural light. And here is his wife. And you see that ERA on there. It's really well worth going to, especially you can combine the Frederick Myers Gardens with the Jerry Ford Presidential Museum, and you really have a nice time. A lot of water featured outside in the museum, in conjunction with the museum, I should say. And now we're going on a little tour. It's we have a local guide, and she is taking us through a restored area called Heritage Hills. And these are all fairly old buildings in Heritage Hill. As a matter of fact, she lives in one. I probably will not be able to tell you which one, but now we're on the bus. We did not get to go in any of these, but saw quite a few. And she knew a lot about them and how they were restored, and the people who had problems getting the okays and all that stuff. She knew all that stuff. Matter of fact, I think that's the one she lives in, but I'm not positive. These are all within Grand Rapids. Now, I've dropped you down from Grand Rapids. We did not do this on the tour, but I wanted you to see Holland, Michigan, with the windmill. The windmill was brought over from the Netherlands, and it's called the Swan. And this is where, I've never been there during tulip time, but this is where you can go to see a lot of tulips in bloom. But the windmill is called the Swan, and it actually came from the Netherlands. Now that tour guide told us, we were wondering where to go for lunch, and she told us to go to Rosie's Diner, and we're heading up towards Rosie's Diner. It's going to be right on our route, so that worked out pretty good. A little church on the way, and here's Rosie's Diner. Rosie's Diner was brought all the way from Little Ferry, New Jersey. That's in almost up to New York City. And it's here, the closest town is Rockford, Michigan. And it was nice soup and stuff there. It was really quite good. And then we went on to towards the Upper Peninsula, but I am taking you off from that tour to the Sleeping Bear Dunes National Lake Shore. Now this is on Lake Michigan. And the dunes get as high as 480 feet above the lake. Of course, the lake is a product of glaciers, and this is a nice place to go, the Sleeping Bear Dunes National Lake Shore, part of the National Park System. And then we went on over. Now I'll show you pictures of the bridge when we come back. But we're up on the Upper Peninsula now. I mentioned that we went all the way up, and we're at Sault Ste. Marie. Michigan got the Upper Peninsula when it became a state, but it had to give up the strip of land that is called the Toledo Strip, which is now part of Ohio. Now you won't see it, but there was lots of copper up in the Upper Peninsula. Even back into Indian days, they knew about it. And this is Sault Ste. Marie. This is the oldest town in the state. A mission was established here in 1668. Now, the Sault Ste. Marie Canal and Lock, and you're looking at the lock here, it takes ships around rapids that have a 20-foot drop between Lake Superior and Lake Huron. And in the 1960s, the Sault Ste. Marie canals and lock carried more freight than the Panama Canal and the Suez Canal combined. That's a lot of freight. Grain, iron ore, timber made up much of the freight, but coal was another commodity moved on the Great Lakes. And this is part of the working of that lock. This is my friend, the old crow, up on a rather interesting light right by the lock. Now, evening is coming on, and you can see this is within the lock, and this is the upper part. And here is, see, there are two locks side by side, and here is coming into the lock. And that is an ore boat. They have different places where you can go up and you can get at the level so that you can see the boats coming through. And night is coming on quite rapidly. And that is the bridge that you would use to go over into Canada. And this is a control tower, if you will, for the Sault Ste. Marie locks. Now I use a plural because, as I mentioned, there are several there. Alongside of them on the U.S. Side are little parks and so forth, and that's what some of this is all about. Fountains and memorials and things of that nature. This is right up against, that is one of the locks, and the anchor is what I was going for. Broad daylight now, no boats in there though. This was a memorial, I believe, to one of the governors there in Michigan. Now we have gone from there and have gone up to Whitefish Point. That was the northernmost point that I showed on the map. And the lighthouse here goes back to 1861, including the tender's house. It's only one of 100 plus in the state. And the Shipwreck Museum is here as well. And you can go through the tender's house, and we did. That's off of one of the old boats that used to come through. That's a rudder, probably off of a sailing vessel. And then in the lock tender's house, you have this Fresnel lens. You'll see another Fresnel lens over in the Shipwreck Museum, but this is the first one that we saw, and it's the arrangement of lenses they use to get the most light to go out over the lake. These are little knicky-knacks in the tender's house, and that's the crib room, sorta, or the children's room anyhow. There's a nice brass bed. And when we approached here, we thought this was a live man, but that is a mannequin dressed up with good hair and all sorts of things. A little sort of kitchen dining room type. Now here's the kitchen. And then the Shipwreck Museum. Now, one of the most famous ships there, here's that Fresnel, the other Fresnel lens I was telling you about. One of the most famous shipwrecks here was the Edmund Fitzgerald Bell. It went down on November the 10th, only in 1975, with loss of 29 men. It was a 729-foot ore carrier, and it went down right off in Lake Superior. And here's the information about that. And you look at these things, and that's the ship's bell that they brought up from the Edmund Fitzgerald. you look at these things and you sort of shake your head. And it reminds me, back when I was in the Navy I was only in the Navy for 14 months, but I remember in one of the chow halls where we were attending Sunday service, and over 1,000 voices singing, "Eternal Father, strong to save, whose arm doth bind the restless wave, who biddest the mighty ocean deep its own appointed limits keep. O hear us when we cry to thee, for those in peril on the sea." And I thought of that when I was looking at this stuff about the Edmund Fitzgerald going down. And then these are other shipwrecks that they tell the stories as you go around. And this I put in, "They that go down to the sea in ships." I took this over in Gloucester, Massachusetts, so I brought a slide of it over into here. That's a phrase from the Bible. And then the top of the lighthouse, oh, the beach. This is Lake Superior now. No. And there's the top of the lighthouse. And there's the lighthouse and the tenders. And then we're going to go over to a completely different place, completely different experience, and that is Tequamanon Falls State Park. The upper falls, which you're looking at, is about 200 feet wide with a 50-foot drop. And then we didn't go to the lower falls on that trip, so I will show you that from an earlier trip. But first, the upper falls. It's quite beautiful. It's getting a little crowded with people over by the parking lot these days, but it's still a really delightful place to visit. You can get a lot of good views of the falls there. I'm looking away down towards the lower falls. The lower falls are really more cascades than they are out-and-out waterfalls. They won't be like this. Now I've moved away and I've moved downstream. You can see over here where a number of people are right at the falls. And we were there just a few minutes ago. And now I'm using the long lens to get a picture from a different angle than you can get right by it with a normal lens. And because I show pictures to children as well, adults as well, I always get little animals if I can, like this little chipmunk. Then moving on down the stream, then you get the lower falls. And this is an earlier day. Quite a few years difference, actually. And this is below the lower falls. Now, going over to the west then, some more from Tequamanon Falls, you come over to the Pictured Rock National Lakeshore. But let me just give you a quotation from John Rodgers, actually, from me. Think about those waterfalls. If your mind and spirit have been shackled by the intensity of sound, sight, and activity of city life, A flowing stream with cascades or waterfall is your surest way to peace, calmness, and contentment. Listen to the light murmur, the deep boom and the shallow whisper of the flowing waters, and on it flows. Now let's get to the Pictured Rock National Lakeshore. This is on Lake Superior, and those cliffs that you're looking at already go up to 200 feet above the water in some places. Now you go by boat, and that costs you some money, but you go by boat and it's about a 37-mile round trip to actually see these pictured rocks. And it is a quite nice little trip. This one you can actually see from the shoreline. And I think that's where I took that from, but much of it you have to be on a boat to really see it. And then on the eastern end of the Pictured Rock area is the setting for Henry Wadsworth Longfellow's epic poem, The Song of Hiawatha. Up in this, it's set among the Ojibways on the southern shore of Lake Superior. By the shores of Gitchigumi, by the shining big sea water, stood the wigwam of Nokomis, daughter of the moon, Nokomis. Dark behind it rose the forest, rose the black and gloomy pine trees, rose the firs with cones upon them. Bright before it beat the water, beat the clear and sunny water, beat the shining big sea water. There the wrinkled old Nokomis nursed the little Hiawatha. And then, I've never been to it, but if you go on straight across Lake Superior up towards Canada, is Michigan's only national park, and that's Isle Royale. And you have to get there by plane, I guess that's a float plane, or by boat to get to Isle Royale. But we are at Porcupine Mountain here, and this is a state park. It's on Lake Superior, and it has stands of virgin hemlock in here, and it has this beautiful view. You have to get up high to see this, but this is Lake of the Clouds. And those birch trees were right on the lake. On the shores of Lake Superior here, still in the Porcupine Mountains, and you can walk along. It's a pebbly shore, and it has these beautiful birch trees in it. It really is quite a gorgeous spot. Now I've moved you down, we're still on the Upper Peninsula, but we're on the southern part of it, and we're over at Lake Michigan now. We have left Lake Superior, we're at Lake Michigan, and the wind is coming so strong that that day that we had whitecaps on the northern end of Lake Michigan. Quite a sight to see. And then we got ourselves situated back on the tour, and we have crossed over the bridge. I'll still show you the bridge in a moment, but we are going over to Mackinac Island, and this is the area where beyond those buildings where you catch the boats that go over to Mackinac Island. This is a whole shopping area within walking distance of our hotel. And down in this area, not right at this marina, but right in this area is where you get the boat over to Mackinac Island. Right here is one of the slips where you can get the boat. Now we're on the boat going over to Mackinac Island, and there is the Mackinac Bridge. I'll just tell you a little bit about that bridge as we go across. The total bridge is the longest suspension structure in the world. The overall length, including approaches, is about 5 miles. It crosses the body of water between Lake Michigan and Lake Huron, and it joins the Upper Peninsula of Michigan with the southern part of the state. David Steinman designed this bridge, which was completed in 1957. And that main span, which you're looking at, is 3,800 feet. And now we have made our way over to Mackinac Island. That is the Grand Hotel that you're looking at there. We haven't landed yet. We still haven't landed. We're coming into our area now, but this gives you good access to the island, and the crossing over is very, very easy. Now, as we get over to Mackinac Island, I have to tell you that during the time that we were there, they had some real problem, and electricity was out in many of the places on the island. A lot of them, like the Mackinac, the Grand Hotel, had their own generators which they put into service. This is a boat that goes fairly fast. It uses a jet to propel it. And as you get over there and you start walking around, and they did have horse-drawn carriages, you don't use any automobiles over here. The only vehicles are emergency vehicles, and of course some trucks and stuff to do utility work, but no automobiles and stuff like that. And this is Fort Mackinac that you're looking up at from the ferry slip. And here's what we would go around on with in the carriage with the horses. We're just going now through the town, and we will be going to several different places as we make our way up. And we're going alongside of Fort Mackinac now, because we're going up to the highest part of the island. I think this is where the head of the fort lives. And this is what is used there. This is a picture taken very close to the Grand Hotel. And this, everybody rides bicycles to get there. And then there's a little museum up there. That used to be the fire engine. Can you imagine having a fire and depending on that? And then up at the top and going back into the woods is this little cemetery. Still going further back, you come to the Arch Rock. And that is looking out through the arch. That would be over to Huron over on that side. And if you look very closely down in here, you can see a road. And there's a road that goes around there, and that is for emergency vehicles. Of course, horse and carriage can go on it also. Then they transferred us to a bigger carriage. Now we got 3 horses, and they're going to pull us over to have lunch at the Grand Hotel. We got one stop. I think they changed a horse here. And then we were at lunch in the Grand Hotel. Quite a place, the Grand Hotel. A little rich for my blood, but quite a place. It was a good lunch and plentiful and so forth. And that was the porch. And now we're looking out at some of the gardens of the hotel. You can get an idea how big this place is. It is huge. Very colorful dressed groom there. Down in the flowers. Now, I won't stay on this long enough for you to read it, but you can see it was opened on July 10th, 1887. And that's quite a while ago. Michigan White Pine. The world's largest summer hotel is what they claim. Lilies out in the gardens. Roses, all kinds of neat things. There you can get a little better idea about the size of the thing. More lilies. And then a walk on down and across the road down to this part of the lake. I always like lighthouses, so I take their pictures. Now, looking across the street, you can look up and see Fort Mackinac up on the heights there under the trees. Probably a golf course down there, looks like. Pretty houses as you make your way down towards where you're going to catch the ferry back. We're right down on the water now, looking back at Fort Mackinac. And this is the statue of Father Jacques Marquette. He lived between 1637 and 1675 and was instrumental in starting things around here. A lot of people up there, especially during this time. And I believe that's a little Episcopal church there. Mama and some of her little ones. And we're about ready to head back, but I think we looked a little bit more before we went, because I remember walking up to the end of the street and seeing this big hotel. We did not stay on the island. We stayed over on the Lower Peninsula. And see, we will be going out around this light and going out like this to get back. And that's, well, we're going in a ferry just like that one. And we're back across now. Just walking around the little area where we were, saw this old carving of a ship's captain, and then the lighthouse there, very close to the bridge, as a matter of fact. And then the bridge going off into the mist, and I'm standing on the shore of Lake Huron. It really was misty. So I went to an earlier time, and this is the bridge from the Upper Peninsula, from a different trip. And this, my wife was driving, and I shot this right through the windshield as we were crossing the bridge one time. And this also is from the northern or the Upper Peninsula. Good lighting, good, neat stuff. A little bit about Lake Huron. Now, Lake Huron is big because it includes Georgian Bay as part of Lake Huron. So you have to remember that. Now we drop down to a place that got its start being famous for chicken dinners and so forth. But it's a Bavarian inn here at Frankenmuth. And it has a glockenspiel tower, which was not working when we were there. But anyhow, that's the place. And we had lunch here. And how do you like this chicken made out of plant life? I call it the shrubbery chicken. All kinds of neat flowers around Frankenmuth. And this is the tower that is supposed to have things going on, but it was not working when we were there. So I can't give you any of the scenes. But there is the Bavarian Inn from across the street. And this is the chicken here again. Now I walked around a little bit, and various and sundry scenes. They even have a covered bridge here in Frankenmuth. Nice shops, real clean, and some of them are a little costly, but neat places. Looks like we're going into a castle here. A lot of hanging baskets throughout the town, not just in the area where we were. And there is the covered bridge that I mentioned. And as we leave the covered bridge and start walking back down, you walk alongside of the Cass River. The Cass River is what goes under the covered bridge. Here's that mountain ash, it's called. Now we will go down here, and then we will cut off about there. Our bus is out in here somewhere, and that's the Cass River we're walking alongside of. Okay, now we jump down to Rochester. We're getting closer and closer to Detroit. And this is part of Oakland University. It's Meadowbrook Hall. And this is Dodge. This is where you come in here. Now you're not allowed to take pictures inside, so when I get you inside, my pictures will be from postcards, not my own. I will have taken them in my home. But this is the grounds around it, and it's quite nice, quite nice. Meadowbrook Hall. Pretty good sized place too. Now I have you remember, postcards is where these are coming from. This is the drawing room. And then this is the Matilda Dodge Wilson bedroom. Note that word Dodge. And then here's the Great Hall. And then there's a gallery off of the Great Hall, and that's what this is. And then the formal dining room. And all of this is at Rochester, Meadowbrook Hall. They were doing a wedding that day. I never was able to tell whether the wedding was going to actually take place that day or whether they were just out here to take pictures preceding the wedding. But I got a picture of them anyhow. Now I have you at a different place now. This is Grosse Pointe Shores on Lake St. Clair. Lake St. Clair is between Lake Huron and Detroit, so it is between Lake Huron and Lake Erie. But it's a pretty good sized lake, but it's never mentioned as part of the Great Lakes. But this is at Grosse Pointe Shores, and we will be seeing the home of Edsel and Eleanor Ford. And that's what we're looking at now, the house and grounds. And again, I had to go to postcards to give you anything of the inside. This is the morning room, and this is Mrs. Ford's sitting room. And this is Edsel Ford's study. And then here is the dining room. Now moving back outside, here is right out in front of the house. It's very dark. It looks like it actually rained this day, but that's looking out at Lake St. Clair. Sort of a silhouette-y type picture. And we were dodging raindrops by this time, but here's some of the grounds. And that is the playhouse. Some more of the grounds. And then the Gate Lodge garage we'll get to in a minute. Well, that's it among the trees there. And we will go over to it, the Gate Lodge garage. They had a couple of cars in there, and they didn't want you taking pictures of them. These are oldies, and I don't think they wanted anybody to have pictures of them because they could then try and price them. And here's a little cove that was done especially for this. They extended this peninsula over here so that they would have a cove here. But that's Lake St. Clair on out there, and a Ford Cove is what they call this place where enclosed. Okay, we have moved now into the Detroit area, and just a few pictures of downtown Detroit. And I'm not all that familiar with Detroit itself. I've been there several times, but not too familiar with it. And this is out by, I guess this is the Renaissance Center. And this is out by the stadium. We're going to go over to the Henry Ford house. How do you like that for traffic? We were trying to make our way at this point over to Greenfield Village because there was something on the outside of Greenfield Village we were going to. Incidentally, we won't do anything much there except just a few pictures I had from an earlier time there. These are some marching and so forth, and this is the Wright brothers cycle. This is the one that was down by Dayton, and much of the figuring out how to fly was done in that building by the Wright brothers. And here is the Firestone farm at Greenfield Village. And this one is the Logan County Courthouse, which was one of the places where this is Logan County, Illinois. This was one of the places where Abraham Lincoln stopped when he was riding the law circuit in Illinois. Still in Greenfield Village now. These are some of the, this represents the type of housing you would have in the Cotswolds over the hills over in England. And we got there when they had a little pageantry going on. And then we moved over to the Henry Ford home. And went inside it and all around it and so forth. Now, if you're a Buckeye fan, fine, but I still think you ought to head up here and see the old Model Ts at Henry Ford and Greenfield Village and on up, especially the Upper Peninsula, and just for a little while, say yes to Michigan.